All right, guys, let's get into the next point here. I'm going to go ahead and lead off because I think a lot of people were stunned to see that Joe Flacco was starting. I think a lot of people were expecting Zach Wilson to get the start after practicing last week. Apparently, he is still rehabbing. And quite honestly, I do believe that he is still rehabbing. I do not believe the Jets are just trying to hide him against this Dolphins defense, because if anybody was on this team completely healthy, who's going to give them the best chance to win at quarterback against this defense? It would be Zach Wilson. But if I had to pick the number 2 person on this team to be the best option at quarterback, it would be Joe Flacco. And this is why. Mike White does not threaten defenses downfield. I think that he can throw downfield when he gets his opportunities. I don't think he's completely incapable. I don't think his arm is completely and totally useless and just this air cannon on the side of his arm that doesn't have any power. I think he's got enough arm strength to get the ball downfield, but it's not threatening. And Zach Wilson's arm, as well as Joe Flacco's arm, they are threatening. They give fear in a defense that if they leave players in single coverage and you have speedy receivers on the outside like an Elijah Moore, that they are going to be able to throw the ball so far down the field that no corner is going to be able to catch up in recovery, and that speedy receiver is just going to be able to run under it and go get it. That is a crucial point of offenses, that you have to be able to dictate what teams are doing to you. And Joe Flacco himself actually had a really good line in his press conference today that I think sums it up perfectly. And the way he put it, he was talking about the Dolphins defense and how they bring a lot of guys to the line of scrimmage and they try and send pressure and not be scared and trust their secondary and coverage. And they try and play a really aggressive style of defense. And the way he put it is the teams that are usually the aggressors end up winning. And I think that's exactly true. So my next point would be, if teams that are the aggressors end up winning and you're going against a team that wants to be aggressive, you have to fight aggression with aggression. You have to fight fire with fire. And the handful of ways that you can beat zero blitz, which is the primary coverage the Dolphins run, and the infamous coverage in the Sam Darnold ghost game, is you either throw hot like the Jets tried to last year and get completely picked apart if teams squat under it. You either try and run against it and get to the edges, which I think is an option that can be had this week, or you sit in max protection and you test the corners deep and you try and take advantage of the space that they're going to give. And you try and see if they can keep up 50, 60 yards down the field. I think that's why Joe Flacco is starting, because if Mike White was starting, everything would have to be underneath against this pass rush. Neither of these quarterbacks are going to be able to escape and be mobile and punish teams for blitzing by getting out of a pass lane and getting to the edge and running for 25 yards. That's not going to happen with either of these guys. So the only other way to threaten this defense is down the field. Joe Flacco is going to threaten defenses down the field more than Mike White would. And even if the Jets aren't throwing deep on every play, which I don't think they should, the fact that they can is enough reason to open up the hot throws underneath. That's what's going to eliminate the opportunity for this defense to squat on everything. That's why the Patriots defense picked Sam Darnold apart, because Sam Darnold has never been a good deep thrower going back to even his college days. So they weren't scared of him taking advantage of them over the top. They were sitting on everything underneath. I believe it was the first or second play of the game when he's throwing a speed out to Jamison Crowder and Devin McCourty comes downhill and picks it off. He had no fear that Crowder was going to run a double move up the sideline and take him over the top, because they knew Sam Darnold couldn't throw deep. Joe Flacco can throw deep. And teams know Joe Flacco can throw deep. That, I think, is going to back off this coverage a little bit, and it's going to allow the quick game to open up. And then when they squat on the quick game more, that's when you can speed Elijah Moore, get him matched up in some bunch sets, get him a free release, let him get down the field and see if these guys can play catch up. I think there is a very, very sound reason why Joe Flacco is getting the start. I think of all the available healthy quarterbacks on the roster, he gives them the best chance to win. This is a move because the Jets want to win. This is not to hide Zach Wilson. This is not because they don't believe in Mike White. The NFL is about matchups, and the best matchup for the Jets against this defense is Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people out today that were upset with this move, and I just don't get it. All right. We're going off of what we have right now. We don't have Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson was healthy, he would be in. He'd be playing, and we'd all be happy. But he's not. So we have to look at what's available to us and who's the best option. Like you said, that is Joe Flacco. And yes, maybe White has a capable arm of throwing it downfield. But it's one thing to be able to do it. It's another to do it accurately. And from what I've seen from his passes downfield, a lot of them weren't accurate or on point. Even that interception to White, he had more open but at the same time, that ball was way out ahead of Moore. I doubt Moore would have even gotten to it. It was probably more of a pass to White than it was to Moore. So I don't see Flacco being timid in this area. I think he'll be very decisive with his downfield throws, and he's known for his downfield throws. That's why he was drafted, his arm and his ability to drive the ball down the field. There's not much that the Dolphins can throw at Flacco that Flacco hasn't already seen. Mike White, there's still a good amount that he hasn't seen. So some people are also saying, hey, but maybe we should start Mike White because, well, Flacco's not going to be here next year. So we should get Mike White more snaps. But yeah, at the same time, Mike White, if he does come back, he's going to be the backup. This is all for the backup position, right? So we don't really need to dig that deep to find what we want in a backup quarterback, right? We just know what we have right now because we need one to start. So, and that should be Flacco because he's got the tools that we need. And Mike White, he might not have all the tools, but maybe he's good in a few spots starts when there isn't another quarterback that's better than him. And right now there is.
Yeah, I agree that Flacco gives the Jets the best chance to win right now. I just think that it's like with all of this youth theme and the long-term thinking that Salah preaches all the time, I just think it's odd. It's just a natural reaction to the move. I just think it's odd that he named Joe Flacco the quarterback after defending Mike White on Monday. And honestly, I feel like this locker room needs a win. Salah needs a win because they're about to eat him alive. It was just my natural reaction to the move because it's basically long-term, etc. And now we're just playing a guy because we want to win this game. And I know Flacco gives gives the Jets a better chance to win than Mike White. And Mike White's not the Jets quarterback of the future, but he's younger. The Jets want to see his upside, maybe to see what he brings to the table as a trade asset, if he's going to be a backup or not on the future. And honestly, I just found it odd. I just found it just disconnected with the common theme in the organization ever since Salah took over. The Jets refuse to adjust on defense because they're thinking long term, and now they can play Joe Flacco. Again, I believe Joe Flacco gives the Jets the best chance to win. I believe Joe Flacco is going to give the Jets some completions that Mike White could not. But still, it's just a quarterback move that it doesn't sit well with me.
Maybe I can answer your question, Vitor, because I have an idea of why they are starting Joe Flacco beyond just needing a win and Joe Flacco giving them the best chance to do it. Salah said something today that is either going to end up being infuriating to me or a sign of good things to come. And he was talking about Joe Flacco getting the start, being a veteran who's seen every defense that could be thrown at him, who's going to be decisive, who's going to be able to get the ball out quick. And he said, apart from just winning, he was talking about slowing down development of their young players on offense. He was talking about Joe Flacco is going to give these guys the best opportunity to, he quite literally said, get the ball out quick, get into their playmakers' hands and let them do the rest. And from the angle that if they were to play Mike White, he might get confused. Not, again, Salah didn't say this directly, but this is how I took it, that they could play Mike White. He might get confused. He might not be able to get the ball out as quick, and their playmakers might not be able to flourish as well if Mike White is the quarterback as opposed to Joe Flacco. So the reason that is going to be either really infuriating or really good is that's the exact argument that we've made on defense, that you're making things harder on these players by putting them in situations where they can't develop. So do something as a coach to make it better on them and make it easier and help their development. So I really hope that that isn't just something that they see offensively, and that's something that that's a little bit of a hint that they're going to try and do a little more on defense to help these guys in general, rather than just leave them out to dry. Otherwise, it's really, really, really frustrating that they see that from the offensive side of the ball, that for guys like Elijah Moore and guys like Michael Carter and guys like Elijah Vera Tucker, having Joe Flacco in the game against this defense is going to help their development more than Mike White, which is what they can do as coaches without completely changing their offense to help out their players more than they already do. They can see that offensively. If they can't see defensively that their rigid scheme that everybody in the league can pick apart is hurting these players, it's going to really, really frustrate me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that's a great point. So if they can do it offensively, then they should be able to do it defensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And then I think they asked Corey Davis and Moore how they felt about Flacco coming in. They're like, yeah, I love the idea of him chucking up the ball and us just going deep and grabbing it. They love that kind of play. They want to be able to show off their ability downfield. So I think as far as the team reacting to this, I think they're perfectly fine with it, and I think they'll be better off for it.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, for me, Andrew, your point is solid, but for me, it's just so frustrating to see a staff preach long term all the time, say they won't adjust because they think it's better for the young players on defense, and then it's like, okay, we got to win this one game right here by playing Joe Flacco. I understand their thinking. You have a good point there, but it just doesn't sit well with me right now.
Oh, I agree that it's completely frustrating. I agree that it is.
Yeah,
that it doesn't make sense. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. Just because I think I may understand why they're doing it doesn't mean I agree with it. I certainly think that if they are going to stick to this long-term approach, you shouldn't have traded for Joe Flacco to start with. But if you are now in this situation where you have Joe Flacco on the team, I think this is Robert Saleh feeling the heat. I think this is what this is. I think they have had things go wrong, and I've criticized Saleh and I've criticized Jeff Ulbrich, and they've deserved it. But it is fair to put things in perspective. They've had a lot of things go wrong this year. They've had their rookie quarterback get hurt. They've had their prize defensive end get hurt. Before the season even started, they've had blowouts of games. They've had a multitude of injuries in other places. They've had to adjust on the fly, and they're doing what they can while trying to preach long-term and develop these guys. It's not easy. And I think when you have to remember that Saleh's still living in a hotel with his wife and 7 kids and a newborn baby, that I'm sure isn't easy, on top of it. That's why I always want to be clear that we are criticizing, but we're not sitting here saying fire these guys. We're not sitting here calling these coaches bums. We're not sitting here saying they don't deserve their jobs or the Jets are the Jets again. No, I genuinely think that these guys have what it takes to lead this organization where we wanted to go, but they need to do some things right now that are different. And their message, I think, is getting a little misconstrued because they're feeling the heat. I think they need a win, quite honestly, for better or worse. Yeah. You need to rebound some confidence. You need to get some juice into this team again, because otherwise it's going to be harder for these players to develop. On top of that, I think the team needs a win more than just Robert Saleh needs a win.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
But how about this little theory that starting Flacco also makes it a smoother transition back to Zach than it would be if you throw White out there and he plays great again, right? And then now, does that make it a little harder to transition back to Zach? Whether, I think even if Flacco plays well, nobody's going to be like, oh, wow, let's start Flacco the rest of the season. No, I think everybody's prepared to make that transition.
Yeah, I could see that. Part of me, quite honestly, wants to say these are Jets fans and that there would be some that would say start Joe Flacco for the rest of the season, because there were some that said start Mike White for the rest of the season. And I think those are equally as unreasonable, but I could see it. But I think the Jets are desperate right now. I think Robert Saleh is desperate.
Sorry to cut you off, but would you have said it is unreasonable if he did pull out another 400-yard game against Buffalo?
If Mike White threw for 400 yards against the number 1 ranked Buffalo Bills defense, he should be starting. That I would have said that completely. But Mike White did not throw for 400 yards against the number 1 ranked Buffalo Bills defense. He had 4 interceptions against the Buffalo Bills number 1 ranked defense. And I think that is, and I think that is the key. And it's not like the Cincinnati defense was a world beater before the Jets played them. It's just, I don't know. I think I think this has less to do with the transition to Zach Wilson, and I think it has more to do with the team needing a win and Robert Saleh being able to look at this objectively and say, this defense is going to absolutely kill our offense if Mike White is playing and they have no fear of throwing downfield. We need to be able to beat them vertically, or at least scare them that we can beat them vertically. Otherwise, our offense is going to get destroyed. And if our defense continues to play like they have been, the game's going to get out of reach again. I think this is coaching to win and nothing more than that.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think
Not at
that
all.
we should always be coaching to win, and unless there's some other circumstances. But he needs a win. We need a win. Everybody needs a win. The team needs a win. We need to make decisions based off of that.